Hello, everyone. Dr. Victoria Scribo here on your Sunday, looking at the week ahead. I'm actually going to look at the week and a little bit of the next week because there's only 3 days after the week. So I'm going to include it. So this is going to be a bit of a wrap up of, May. So we're going to look at the astrology of the upcoming about week and a half. All right, let's get started. All right, let's get started. So we're looking at the fourth and 4.5 or fifth week of May. We're going to be looking at the astrology. Let's just keep in mind that numerologically we're in a 5-month. 5 is about change. The universal year vibration is a 6, which is about your ability to respond and be responsible. It's about love. It's about community. It's about a certain amount of justice and balance with that. And then when we add the 2 vibrations together, the 5 and the 6, we get the 11. And so this is a master number vibration month, which makes it generally more challenging. And we're expected to keep a very high vibration, which has been very difficult because there's been a lot of very challenging things that have happened this month, as it seems every month, but particularly this month. So let's take, especially around the eclipse. So let's take a look at the next week and what's coming up for that. So we start with today, which is Sunday the 22nd. I spoke of this morning. Today we have a last quarter moon between the sun and the moon. Of course, the sun is now in Gemini. The moon is in Pisces. And last quarter moons are crisis in consciousness. So this is a crisis in consciousness on the seeds planted on April 30th, 2022, when we had that new moon solar eclipse at 11 degrees of Taurus. That new moon was conjunct Uranus, and it was a north node eclipse. So when we have when it's eclipse season, the eclipses have a Uranian flavor to them all by themselves, and then you add Uranus to the mix, and it's a double Uranus energy, which is total unexpected revelations just pouring out, and boy, haven't they poured out. And haven't to a certain extent, haven't many of us really seen the exposure of where people are, especially people in power, where they're at, what's important to them, what's their values, right? This is all Taurus. This is all North Node in Taurus. They're making their values very evident by their actions or their inactions or their previous actions in many cases. So a lot of that is coming up now to be seen, to be explored, to be talked about. And we'll see that as the week progresses. The Sabian symbol for that particular new moon eclipse was a woman watering flowers in her garden. Remember that? The development of the powers of the mind on which ego consciousness is based. Keyword cultivation. What are you cultivating? What are you cultivating? Now the sun in this last quarter square is at 2 degrees of Gemini. It says Santa Claus furtively filling stockings, hanging in front of the fireplace. And the keynote is a rewarded faith in spiritual blessings, keyword innocence, being squared by the moon at 2 degrees of Pisces, which states a squirrel hiding from hunters. The keynote here is the individual's need both to ensure his future sustenance and to protect himself from aggressive social elements. The need for self-protection and caution is ever present. And so here we see 2 symbols that seem somewhat diametrically opposed to each other, I think on the surface, but underneath it, I don't necessarily think. I think what we're talking about here is that 11 vibration of the combination month and year, right? That a need to be aware of both, to keep your innocence, to keep your faith, to keep that all things will work out, and at the same time to protect yourself from harm. So there's a balance there. It's not just about a leap of faith that everything's going to be taken care of for me. We need to take a responsibility for our own safety and well-being as well. We can't just leave it up to fate. Sometimes fate does what fate does. It doesn't matter what we do or how we prepare, but there's a balance there. There's a balance. And this whole idea of balance is going to be seen through the whole, it sort of starts this, let's see, I think it's like a 10 or 11 day process for the rest of the month, right? The 22nd to the 31st. What is that, 11 days? No. 10 days? 9 days? The next 9 days, right? There's this balance between keeping the faith, keeping hopeful, staying in a way positive, and then on the other side of that, making sure that your positivity doesn't blind you to the dangers that might be around you. We also today have Mars making a waxing sextile to Pluto at 29 degrees of Pisces, Mars, Capricorn, Pluto. These waxing sextiles is actually the first sort of major aspect that that Mars makes to Pluto since its conjunction, right? So waxing sextiles are about opening the lines of communication. This is a Gemini flavor, this aspect. And so it's about gathering information. It's about communicating information. So there's we can expect a lot of messages and information coming to us this week through the process of deep evaluation and digging for the truth here, okay? So we have taking action to gather information needed to broaden our understanding of a situation around what? Power, around power. And we can see here, we have Mars here making a sextile to Pluto here. And we can see that Pluto is in Capricorn, Mars is in Pisces. And what has happened is originally Mars was conjunct Pluto and it has moved 60 degrees away. So it's sort of opening up this is like the opening aspect or Ptolemaic aspect of this synodic cycle. This cycle actually began on March 3rd of 2022. That was actually a 12.3 vibration, the Hanged Man vibration, when this cycle began at 28 degrees of Capricorn. Now, what's significant about that is that it's the degree of the US Pluto, 26 degrees, 28 degrees of Capricorn. It says here, Mercury retrogrades. Oh, and also on this day, sorry. Also on this day, we have Mercury retrograding back into Taurus. We can see here at this time, Mercury is still in Gemini, but shortly thereafter, it ingresses or backs up into Taurus. Because remember, Gemini, Mercury is retrograde. You probably know that, right? Bringing our minds into matters that are practical, essential, and on some level very personal to us. So our resources, our money, what's essential for us. On Monday, the 23rd, we have the sun making a waxing sextile to Jupiter. Again, these waxing sextiles open the lines of communication. And the sun and Jupiter are the two largest planetary bodies in the solar system, right? The two largest bodies in the solar system. So there's always this expansion beyond the beyond, sort of, so to speak, but within the parameters of what we understand. So this is, sometimes we have these expansions of energy that go beyond and go into the sort of go beyond the line that Saturn draws in our lives, which Saturn determines like reality, three-dimensional reality, bodies, things falling from the sky, you know, the physics, all that stuff, right? Three-dimensional reality. The sun and Jupiter will expand within that three-dimensional reality. So we have this real expansion of information coming. on Monday, which is tomorrow. If we look to the original intention of this dynamic between the sun and Jupiter, we look to its initial conjunction. That conjunction occurred on March 5th, 2022 at 15 degrees of Pisces. Incidentally, that was a 14.5 vibration on that day, and that is the Temperance card. So it's a healing energy. It's also spiritual initiation. So this Sun Jupiter conjunction is one of, with the sort of overlay of not just expansion within our three-dimensional perceptions, but also some spiritual initiation. So we're moving up. It's not just here, but it has a connection to the things that we need to know, the things that we need to experience, the things that we need to be aware of in order to evolve up to a higher dimensional frequency, so we can actually solve the problems of the third dimension, because you cannot solve a problem at the same level as the problem, right? Isn't that what Albert Einstein said? So if we look at 15 degrees of Pisces, it says an officer instructing his men before a simulated assault under barrage of live shells. We remember this because all these symbols came up in March, which was right at the beginning of that Russia's invasion of the Ukraine. So all of these symbols seemed very potent and also very apt at the time. And we're still working with these symbols. It says the need for thorough rehearsing before any complex and inherently dangerous social ritual in which power is used or evoked. And when I saw this, I thought to myself, okay, so this is probably about the January 6th hearings that are occurring in June 9th, they're going to start. We also have on the same day, Mercury sextile Mars. This is another 60-degree sextile. This is another opening the lines of communication. Mercury is the mind, and Mars is our actions. So our actions and our mind are aligned in an opportunistic relationship that opens and affords us more information for us to make determinations about whatever that might be. Now, this could be, again, January 6th stuff, but just personally for ourselves, we're going to get the information that we need so we can move forward in our lives. This cycle of Mercury and Mars actually began when Mercury and Mars conjoined each other, right? These synodic cycles between any two planets always start with that initial conjunction. This initial conjunction occurred 3 times, okay? The first time these two planets came together was August 18th of 2021 at 13 degrees of Virgo. It says, a powerful statement overcomes a state of political hysteria. The focusing of the collective need for order and structural interdependence into a personage who incarnates the answer to this need. So this strikes me that we might have a person of sort of maybe higher stature come in and act as a powerful statesman or stateswoman for the kinds of things that we're going to be exposed to when the information about things come out. We also had on October 9th, 2021, we had Mars and Mercury come together again. And at this time it was at 17 degrees of Libra. It says a retired sea captain watches ships entering and leaving the harbor. The capacity to gain an objective and calm understanding of human experiences in which one was once deeply involved. So this is very interesting. This sounds like it could be somebody who's no longer involved in a situation, but has moved away from it, that we gain some understanding through their experience. Okay, this all sounds like January 6th, which is weird because January 6th commission isn't happening until June. but yet all this energy seems to be focused around that. So I feel like, and I sort of following it, but not completely following it. I want to feel like the people that are going to be called to speak in person, but a lot of people now are kind of seeing that. I think that they're getting backed against the wall. So I think we're going to see more people coming forward to move in the direction of truth, perhaps. We can only hope. And then on November 10th, 2021, we had the last of the 3 conjunctions of these 2 planets. Remember, we're dealing with the planet of the mind and the planet of action. And when they interact with each other, we're talking about a sort of like the information and then taking an action on the information, or the action that has been taken and the information coming about that action. November 10th, 2021, at 8 degrees of Scorpio, a calm lake bathed in moonlight, a quiet openness to higher inspiration. So these all these symbols seem very interesting at this time when these 2, so those were the initial symbols of what this cycle was going to be about, and now we're opening the lines of communication about it. And so I feel like this is a process. These 3 symbols that I just said was the initial seed sort of intention of this cycle, and now we start to get the information necessary. Now, any cycle with Mars is a 2-year cycle. So while the information is coming out, we're going to have more information and more understanding. It actually might take until, let's see, 2020, 2024, before this completely, we get the complete story, the complete picture, the complete whatever, the whole thing, right? Which is interesting because that's when we have the next presidential election. Okay. Tuesday, May 24th, we have Venus make a sextile to Saturn at 26 degrees of Aries, Venus, and Saturn in Aquarius. This is, again, opening the lines of communication, opening the lines of communication. We can see these sextiles are all in this sort of, are all happening now in this sort of idea of, oh, now we're going to see what's going on, right? Now we're going to talk about it. Now the information is going to come out. Opening lines of communication around values, the structure of society, money, and fair distribution of resources. It's interesting, the symbol, Sabian symbol for the initial conjunction, which occurred on March 28th at 22 degrees of Aquarius, is a rug placed on the floor of a nursery to allow children to play in comfort and warmth. The warmth of understanding which comes to those who early in life are open to new possibilities. So this is about nurturing our future, nurturing and making it comfortable. Now it's very interesting because in the United States here we have we have an issue. I can't think of the word I'm trying to think, with baby formula. We can't feed the babies. And at the same time, they're talking about upturning Roe versus Wade, which has been law for 50 years. Neither one of those things really, neither one of those things look good for the future of children, honestly, right? No food, and you can be born in any situation because your mother has no rights to her own decisions for her own life. So the mother doesn't have a choice to be ready to have children, to be financially stable enough to have children, to have a relationship that's stable enough to have a child within. So these are very interesting symbols coming up for a very interesting time we find ourselves in. On Tuesday, we have Mars ingressing into Aries. Whenever Mars ingresses into Aries, it's kind of the start of a new sort of zodiacal season or zodiacal season, Aries being the first sign of the zodiac. Also, the 0 Aries point is considered a world point. All the 0 degrees of the cardinal signs are considered world points. And when something goes over the world point, the whole world is affected. The whole world is affected. So we can see that we have the Mars right here at 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, Aries 0, 0, and it's conjunct the moon, and it's conjunct Jupiter. So this can be anger of the people that we might see getting expressed. And there's, any number of reasons that might happen, right? At the same time, we're looking here. If you look at this chart, right? I mean, if you look at this particular chart, we have, the Mars, as we say, moving into Aries with the conjunction to the Sun and Jupiter very close. We have Venus, right, at 25 degrees, sextile Saturn at 25 degrees. So this is that opening the lines of communication energy here. We have Mercury here in a trine to Pluto. Okay, very, very powerful. And we also have this Mars here square Black Moon Lilith in Cancer. This looks to me like women rising up right here, right here. And we have to remember it. I don't have it in this chart, but there is the planet Eris, which is a very a new planet that was discovered. I think it was 2006. And she is an energy of rebellion and sort of the pissed off feminine. And we have Venus conjunct Eris at this time. Even though you can't see it there, I'll tell you, Venus is conjunct Eris. So this to me very much looks like a rising up of women for their rights. Women for their rights. I believe I don't know when the Supreme Court is gonna close, go on vacation, stop working. That's when they come up with all this stuff, and that's when we'll find out, I guess, whether Roe versus Wade is upheld or is overturned. We're living in interesting times. There's just so much that's coming out right now and so much exposure. And I think after the January 6th thing that's going to be happening in the public, so everybody can see it and hear what happened, I think there's going to be a lot more ramifications from that, and some of which is probably going to be the Supreme Court because of Thomas and Ginny Thomas and all that stuff. But we can talk about that one. We could just go on and on, couldn't we? So we have that symbol of first degree of Aries, woman just risen from the sea. A seal is embracing her, the emergence of new forms and of the potentiality of consciousness. So anytime we're dealing with this first degree of Aries, something new is coming in to consciousness. Now, Mars has been in Pisces for quite a while, and there was a lot going on in Pisces, right? There was Jupiter and Neptune and Venus and Mars and all of this energy in Pisces, all sort of happening. And when things happen in Pisces, because it's such a diffuse energy, we don't always know what's happening, but it's highly fruitful and full of potential. And now the Mars, and the god of war, or the god of action, or the masculine force comes up and says, this is the journey. And we get a little bit of the journey. And because we have the moon here, and Jupiter, which is about freedom, and squaring Black Moon Lilith in Cancer, to me, this just speaks of women rising up for their rights to their own bodies, autonomy of their own bodies. You cannot take this away from me. That's exactly what this feels like to me. We'll see. On Wednesday, the 25th, we have Mercury retrograde making its waxing trine to Pluto. Remember, I just showed you that trine in the last one, but we can see it here. Where are we going here? Mercury, here's Mercury, and there's Pluto. And we see that trine again. Of course, we saw it in the other one, but now it's exact on the next day, right? This is the second of 3 exact trines because we have Mercury retrograde. Okay, so the first one occurred on April 28th, 2022 at 29 degrees of Taurus Capricorn. The second one, which is occurring today on the 25th, or this day, Wednesday on the 25th, is at 29 degrees Taurus Capricorn. And the third one, which will occur on June 10th, incidentally, the day after it the whole thing for the January 6th Commission opens up, public testimony on the we have the third trine. This time, Mercury is direct. And Mercury and Pluto is really about digging deep, getting to the bottom line here, getting to the bottom line. So let's look at the Sabian symbol for 29 degrees of Capricorn, because this seems to be the energy, right? 29 degrees of Capricorn, 29 degrees of Taurus. At the end of the earth signs, right? 29 degrees is almost at the very, very end. A woman reading tea leaves, 29 degrees of Capricorn, the ability to see a signature of hidden meaning in every occurrence, drawing one's attention. Well, isn't that kind of what we do with astrology to a certain extent? And then the Sabian symbol for Mercury at 29 degrees of Taurus, 2 cobblers working at a table, the twofold characters of man's mature understanding. It's interesting because it's 2 cobblers, right? So that's 2 shoemakers. And we have a right foot and we have a left foot, don't we? And in order for us to move forward, we have to use both feet. And so this isn't really about one side getting everything that they want. This is about one side exposing so that we can work together to move forward with both feet. I mean, you can hop along, but it takes a lot of energy and it looks silly. Thursday, May 26th, we have Mars at 1 degree of Aries, right? Just moved into Aries, making a semi-square to Uranus. And I don't usually talk about semi-squares, but we can see here, here's Mars right here, and here's Uranus. Now, if you notice, Mars is moving towards Uranus. So it's actually moving towards its conjunction, which will occur on the 1st of August. We'll get to it. But right now, why this semi-square is important is because this is where the synodic cycle between Mars and Uranus reaches its next and last phase, which is the balsamic phase. The start of the balsamic phase of this 2-year synodic cycle that began, listen folks, January 20th, 2021. Does anybody remember what that was? Yes, it was the inauguration, and it occurred at 7 degrees of Taurus. Mars and Uranus is a revolutionary pair. So it says 7 degrees of Taurus, a woman of Samaria at the ancestral well, the meeting of the traditional past and of the creative spirit pointing to the future. Now, I want to read this to you because this is I love this Sabian symbol for this reason. So let me read it to you and you will see why I love it. Now, we've talked about this Sabian symbol before because I believe it was, this because of this Mars-Uranus conjunction. It says the symbol refers to a most important but narrowly interpreted episode of the Christ mythos. Early in his ministry, Jesus meets a Samaritan woman at the ancestral well. This woman belongs to his tribe, despised by the Jews. Moreover, she is unmarried and therefore on the fringe of even her own society. It is just that kind of woman that Jesus reveals that he is the Messiah. I am here, a revelation that he apparently will not bestow even upon his disciples, at least not in words, because he spoke it to Mary Magdalene. What does this mean? Jesus, as the avatar incorporating the Christ impulse, came to replace the old tribal order with the new order based on universal love. It is not a representative of, or even to men still attached to it, the old order that Jesus could reveal his spiritual and evolutionary and society transforming status. They had instead to reach a point where they could discover his avatarship, as as did Peter just before the transfiguration scene. But to the woman of Samaria, who in her openness to love's urging has already repudiated any narrow subservience to the old order, Jesus could reveal his function. The highest meets the lowest when the lowest is free from traditional bonds and open to love. The creative future descends first to that which had, the high, the creative function descends first to that which has become chaos. An old order is never open to new revelation until it has accepted disorder in the name of that power, which subsumes all forms of order, i.e. love. So Jesus, had to express himself to the outsider. So that's really what it says. If you are an insider, it's very difficult or near impossible for you to hear the words. And so the outsider must hear the words. And in this case, it's a woman, unmarried, and even for her in her tribe, which was unusual. And then two people that you would think would normally be close to a Jew saying anything, right? So there is this energy of sort of having to be an outsider in order to embrace a larger view of life. The balsamic phase, which is the last phase in the phases of in the 8 phases that we go, that are based on the lunation cycle, but you can do it with any 2 planetary pairs. And in this case, we have Mars, which is action, and Uranus, which is revolution. So the balsamic phase, the evolving soul likewise distills the wisdom essence of the past cycle and intuits the visions of the future, creating seed capsules that will generate at the new phase. So this period between now and the next conjunction, which occurs in August 1st, which is not far away, is about making sense out of what's been going on since January 20th of 2021. So that's the whole Biden administration. So we need to ponder what has happened and what has worked, what hasn't worked. You know, there's a lot of really good things in there, but we want it all. We're tired of the old way, and I think maybe we ask for too much initially, but eventually we'll, I think eventually we're going to get what we want. It's just a matter of being maybe a little patient with it, which I know is neither Mars nor Uranus that's particularly patient. Incidentally, that date 8/1/2022, which happens to be a 15/6, which is the devil card, which is associated with the sign of Capricorn. On that day, this conjunction occurs at 19 degrees of Taurus. It happens to be conjunct the North Node, the transiting North Node, so the North Node of the day. So that's big because that's a new synodic cycle. And the symbol for that, 19 degrees, we talk about, earth-shaking events, a new continent rising out of the ocean, the surge of new potentiality after the crisis. Interesting, huh? So very interesting. So the 2 symbols for these degrees, which further sort of elucidates this for me anyway, or maybe makes it more complex, but certainly apt in all ways, as far as I can tell. The Sabian symbol for one of Aries is a woman just risen from the sea, a seal embracing her. So this is emergence. This is the will to be, right? And then 16 degrees of Taurus, where we have Uranus, it says an old teacher fails to interest his pupils in traditional knowledge, the inadequacy of past knowledge in a time of crisis. And so a lot of the crisis that we face is old crisis, right? There's plenty of old crisis going on. Um, these wars, these never-ending wars, that's an old crisis. The Cold War, old crisis. Women being subjugated, old crisis. New crisis, how about global warming for a new crisis? Something we don't really haven't experienced consciously, or what we're conscious of now, right? It happened before. It happens over and over again, I'm sure, but we weren't here and our history doesn't speak of it. Certainly not our written history. So it's not just about the old, because those need to be resolved too. But how do we face the new world? How do we face the new world? That's like a month away. So, 2 months away. A lot of stuff's happening between now and then, guys. Just put on your seatbelts. Friday the 27th, we have a first quarter square between Venus and Pluto. Here you can see Pluto at 28, what is that, 25, I think. Venus at 28, 25. Venus in Aries, Pluto in Capricorn. Cardinal signs, whenever we have these squares, it's about action, but it's cardinal, so it's new action. It's initiatory, new initiatory stuff, right? So this crisis in action is the seed, the crisis in action on the seeds planted when these two planets were conjunct. But Venus was retrograde, right, for quite a while at the end of last year and the beginning of this year. So we actually have 3 conjunctions of Venus and Pluto. First one occurred on December 11th, 2021 at 26 degrees of Capricorn. The second one occurred on Christmas, December 25th, 2021, again at 26 degrees of Capricorn. That's when Venus was retrograde. And then on March 3rd, 2022, we had the last and final conjunction at 28 degrees of Capricorn, which incidentally is the degree of the United States Pluto. And 26 degrees of Capricorn. So the first 2 conjunctions, a nature spirit dancing in the iridescent mist of a waterfall, the ability to perceive the hidden creative spirit of natural phenomena. This speaks to us of our relationship to nature and the magic that it holds. And then 28 degrees of Capricorn, a large aviary, the enjoyment of spiritual values by a soul able to familiarize itself with their implications. A large aviary is something that holds many different kinds of birds. And this talks of enjoyment of spiritual values. These are values that are based on the live and let live principle. This is what you believe. This is what I believe. We can live together in harmony. We will chitter chatter at each other like birds do. We will maybe fly past each other. Maybe we'll get into scuffles, but for the most part, it's about learning to live together. Michael is mowing the lawn. I don't know if you can hear it out the window. Yay. Sunday, May 29th, 2022. So this is the last of the week, right? This is going to be the last two days. We have Mars make a conjunction to Jupiter. Remember, Jupiter just moved into Aries this month, right? In May, in May, and then Mars moved in, and now they come together, and they come together at 4 degrees of Aries. And it says here, and it says 2 lovers strolling on a secluded walk. The progressive polarization of energies needed for fulfilling one's life function. Remember, I talked about the 2 cobblers and the 2 feet, and you need both feet to move forward. In order to respond fully to the potentialities released by a sense of identification with the greater whole. So I am and we are, right? The human being should be himself whole or herself whole. So the macrocosm and the microcosm, right? That's why when you work on yourself and you do the work for yourself to find the balance within you, it radiates out. You can't, when you push against something, you put more energy to it. When you align yourself within that peace radiates out and everything around you becomes peaceful. That's how that works, right? An interplay of bipolar energies is needed to provide a sustained and dynamic resonance to any superior or encompassing form of life. This may imply a temporary withdrawal from routine activities, such as the secluded part of the process. It is not, however, a closed process. The positive and negative polarities do not meet in a closed circuit. What is that? A closed mind doesn't work, or closed just doesn't. It's you need to have it needs to be open, like an open society, as opposed to a closed society. It is not, however, a closed process. The positive and negative polarities do not meet in a closed circuit, reconstituting a neutral state of potentiality. They operate in a dynamic, open, unresolved togetherness in contact with surrounding energies of nature. We do not have to agree on anything, on everything. We don't have to agree on everything in order to live together. We don't all have to be on the same page. We can be on different pages, but we do have to respect each other. And that's part of the sixth vibration of the universal year, right? And it's also the lover's vibration in the tarot. So it's that Gemini energy, it's that duality. We are dual, we live in a dual existence, and we have to learn to live that within that and function within that, because that is the reality that we have. The symbol characterizes a stage of dynamic and unresolved polarization. And lastly, I know this symbol is looking a little dire, but we have the new moon in Gemini, 10 degrees of Gemini. The saving symbol for 10 degrees of Gemini is an airplane performing a nosedive. Uh-oh. The superior ability to challenge nature and play with danger. Now I want to read this whole thing too, because I think it's pretty interesting. This is Dane Rudger. This is from this book right here. Right? Okay. It says, through the controlled use of mental powers, man is able to challenge the most basic force in nature, gravitation. He enjoys playing with it as a lion tamer with his violent animals. But what he challenges is within himself as well as outside. Gravitation is the universal binding force of the material world, but challenging it may prepare, but challenging it, by challenging it, man prepares himself to pierce beyond the physical and reach higher realms of existence. He may lose the struggle, but the prospect makes the effort more exciting. He might gain immortality. And if we look here, we can see this conjunction here of the sun and the moon. It is in a, let's see, what aspects is it making? I'm not sure that it's making any aspects. It's making a wide sextile to Mars. It is making a sextile to Chiron. And I don't have the other asteroids in here, so it might be making an aspect to Chiron. The fact that it's not really aspecting anything else gives me the sense that this symbol is somewhat of a one-off and it can be an isolated thing. So it's very possible that with this energy, we may see somebody, go for it, so to speak. And whether or not they survive it is another story. but it will be remembered. And whatever that means, I have no idea. I'm just saying what comes out. Okay. All right, guys. Well, I hope you found that interesting. I certainly found it interesting in my research and in my ability to hopefully give you some perspective on it. So I will see you again the beginning of June for the week ahead in June for the astrology and Kabbalah of June for the and also for the taroscopes for June. They'll be coming out as well. And for those of you who are interested in taking my Kabbalah class, I still have some openings. That's starting this. It's starting Wednesday, which is the, hold on, I will tell you in a moment. I should know. Let's see, Wednesday the 25th. Wednesday the 25th, right? What's today? The 22nd. Yep. Okay. So for those of you who are interested, please, you can go to my website and it's on the events page. And the date on the event page say that it started on the 18th. That is wrong. It's actually starting on the 25th. So you could ignore the start date, but you can find it so you can purchase the class and join us because it's going to be loads of fun. All right, guys, have yourself a great month, rest of the month, and much love to you all. Namaste.